Hi, James Bell here with Grow in Grace. We are studying Dr. Ed Wheat's book, Love Life for Every Married Couple. Highly recommend the book. And we are using the larger but thin edition. The other one is smaller in size one way, but it's thicker. Why does that matter? When I refer to page numbers, it's from this larger one. And so if you're going to be using this as an individual or as a group or as a class, whatever, it's good to be able to turn to the page that is actually being referred to. We hope that you can use this as an individual, family, even as a husband or wife that is trying to save your marriage alone. There's a very powerful chapter we will be getting to this. That's the title, How to Save Your Marriage Alone. It's very powerful. Today, we're looking at chapter 12, A Pattern for Lovers. Now, this is a very unique chapter, takes you into some unfamiliar territory, has a paraphrased edition at the back of the chapter, the Song of Solomon. You may never have read that book. We're not going to deal with all the pages in this chapter that begins on 151, but the short of it is that this is a story about Solomon and his love for a lady named Shulamith. You say, time out. Didn't Solomon have a whole bunch of wives and a whole bunch of concubines? And how is he going to help us with anything on marriage? Well, Solomon's life comes in time frames. Early on, he walked with God. In a large middle section, he turned away from God. At the end, he came back. This would have been when he was early in his life, walking with the Lord, committed to one woman. The segment in which he turned away from the Lord, he later writes about in the book of Ecclesiastes. He tried everything that most people say, if I could have that, I would be happy. He had all the money, all the women, all the whatever. And he gets to the end of the way of all of that and he says, it was all emptiness. And he found out that the grass wasn't greener on the other side. He was left with a void. It doesn't matter what you do or what you have. If you're outside of the will of God, you're going to wake up empty. In this chapter, in a wonderful love story in the book of Solomon, we glean some lessons about a sacred love relationship. Now, many people think that this book is a picture of the relationship between Christ and the church, and there's a lot to be said for that. Others say it's primarily giving information about an intimate and powerful relationship between a husband and a wife. There's a lot to be said for that as well. I would hold that both views are correct, because in God's economy, the husband and wife relationship, as Ephesians 5 tells us, is a picture of the relationship between Christ and the church. So anyway, here's this woman, and she's married to this high-flying, well-to-do, on the top, he's at the top of the mountain. He's the king, has a lot of wisdom, a lot of wealth, a lot of things going for him. And Shulamith apparently was a country girl. And so she's having to get adapted to a whole new way of life. And so in this book, we find some gleanings of how they went through some adjustment times. Guess what? Marriages have adjustments. You can be married for 50 years and still have to wake up tomorrow morning and make some adjustments. Why? Because people are different. Yes, I understand that after 50 years, you can look at two people and say, well, I know they're married, they're just alike. But even so, from time to time, there are adjustments to make. Well, one of the things that you will learn on page 158 and 159 is that when Shulamith was having difficulty in maybe being who and what she should be, her husband did not try to win her by critiquing her or by criticizing her, but by giving public adoration to her. Very powerful. And there was an occasion where she was out of joint, you might say. And she closed the door and shut him out. Well, instead of ranting and raving and trying to hammer her on the head with the Bible and calling her a rebellious woman or whatever, he left a note outside her door that assured her that he loved her. Believe it or not, people need to make changes in their life. What is the most powerful tool that God gives me to help bring about effective godly change in someone else? It's not criticism. It's not anger, all those things that we normally do, but rather, if you're having a fight, make it a good one. And understand the word good. Use the weapons of love and blessing. You love someone, you bless them, you pray for them. 3 weapons to use as you're developing a godly relationship, as you're trying to overcome some difficult times. And no withdrawing, no sulking, no anger, no resentment, no bitterness, no blasting, just love, blessing, and prayer. And so this caused the relationship to flourish. At the bottom of page 160, Dr. Wheat writes, "To see how she blossomed in the security of his love, we can compare 3 statements she made. When she first fell in love with him, she said, 'My beloved is mine, and I am his.' Her possession of him was uppermost in her mind. Later in their relationship, she said, 'I am my beloved, and my beloved is mine.' She's reversed the order. And then finally, she said, 'I am my beloved's, and my desire is toward him.' So there is a growing of the relationship, a growing of a desire to be a blessing to her spouse. The husband, he said to her on one occasion, 'Let me see your countenance, let me hear your voice, for sweet is thy voice, and thy countenance is lovely.'" Words are powerful. And so when a couple uses words of love, words of encouragement, words of building up, the love factor in the home, the enjoyment factor in the relationship grows. The romance factor in the relationship grows. So this is, in this chapter, he deals with some of the questions about how people view the book. When I go through this chapter with a couple face-to-face, we basically deal with these center pages that deal with the primary lessons that both the husband and wife discovered. I asked the couples to read the Song of Solomon, the paraphrase is given here, but we don't actually go through it. So when you go through this as an individual or with a group, I would encourage you to take the middle pages that start with about 158 and go through about 160 or 162 and make that the focus of this chapter. It's, in one sense, a shorter chapter for us, but powerful information that's transforming. And we'll look forward to spending time with you next time, getting to chapter 13.